All right, let's take a little further in this. If we were to break it down and give, pretend it's figure skating and basically award this on points, I think Real Madrid were the more deserving side.
Yep.
On points, I thought Oblak. If anything, Oblak and Kepa. I thought Kepa made at least one really good save. Oblak made several, and then it felt as if like their paths kind of diverged as the game went on. Where Kepa obviously responsible for the third goal, but Alex, do you agree with my assessment that Real Madrid were deserving winners, even though the game could have obviously gone either way? And B, Kepa's doing himself no favors, right?
Yeah, I think Real Madrid, especially as the game went on, especially as we got to extra time, I think we clearly were the better team. We saw it with the changes that Ancelotti was able to make as well, bringing on players like Joselu, getting some fresh legs out there. I think you can see that Madrid's squad is better than Atletico's, and I think that's why Real Madrid really dominated extra time, and that was when they went on and won it, of course. Before that, over the 90 minutes, yeah, it was pretty much even. But I think after extra time, you look back at it as a whole, and I think Madrid certainly deserved the win. Kepa's a funny one, and Carlo Ancelotti's kind of discourse on this has changed over the last few months. When Kepa was first injured before Christmas and Andre Lunin came in, Ancelotti said, no, when Kepa's back from injury, Kepa will be back in goal. That's gone away. That's not the case anymore. Ever since then, ever since Lunin came in and did really well, and I think looked a better goalkeeper than Kepa, Ancelotti hasn't said that. Now he says, look, I'm choosing game by game. He wouldn't say again, even after the game last night, who would be his goalkeeper for the final. My feeling is that I think that he's chosen Lunin as his goalkeeper in La Liga, and I think in the Champions League as well. And I think he's giving Kepa these games in the Copa del Rey in January and in the Super Cup. I think Kepa essentially has become the cup keeper because Lunin's played better. Lunin's more convincing. Kepa, yeah, he makes the odd good save, as you say, but it just feels like a familiar image. What we saw in this game, we saw it from Kepa earlier in the season. Him, the ball in the back of the net, Kepa protesting a foul that he's somehow been kind of impeded or pushed or something when he just hasn't been strong enough. That aspect of his game has always been an issue, and it was an issue again here. And I just think he's made his mind up. I mean, he won't come out and say that because he doesn't want to destroy Kepa's confidence in case he needs him. But like I say, my feeling is that Kepa starts games like this, but in the really crunch games in La Liga, in the Champions League, unless things change drastically, I think Lunin's the man.
Well, you say really crunch games. What would a hypothetical Clasico in the Super Cup final be? Would that be a really crunch game?
It's still the Super Cup. It's still the least important trophy. I mean, it's a trophy, but it's the least important trophy of the season. It feels kind of more important than it used to when it was a glorified pre-season friendly because of where it comes in the season. Because it's mid-season, it feels like sort of the serious business starts now, right? But it's still the Super Cup. It's still the least important trophy of the season. So even if it's a Clasico, I think.
Kepa or Lunin for you?
Lunin. I don't rate Kepa at all. I want a goalkeeper that's going to be dominant when crosses come into the box. I want a goalkeeper, and Alex just said it, who doesn't moan every time the ball goes in the back of the net, claiming there's been a foul against him. I just don't think he's strong enough. And he's lost confidence over his time at Chelsea and over his time at Real Madrid. He's just not quite the keeper that everybody expected him to be.
I want to pull you up just slightly on him. I'm going to just, it's my contrarian self, Alex. Don't take it personally. You talked about depth of the two squads. Now, obviously, Real Madrid have a higher wage bill and have better players. But when you think of depth, I've been taught to sort of think of the drop-off between the starters and the people who replace them. Like, that's my definition of depth, not who has the better guys off the bench. And I look at this, and I actually think Atleti are a pretty deep squad. When you look at who came on, I think it's also because Simeone likes to rotate and change things around. Like we saw, I think few of us would have had Saul as a starter. I certainly wasn't expecting that. But he was, in terms of the bench, he was able to bring on Angel Correa, Witsel, who normally starts. Molina it's not like Molina is markedly worse than their starting fullback. So when I put these things together, I wonder, does he really have more depth? Because Real Madrid, yeah, they brought on old Kroos and Camavinga, but they also brought on old Joselu, Brian Diaz, who people seem to treat like a bit of excrement stuck to their shoe in the summer when he returned. Dani Ceballos even more so. and Arda Güler, who I know we're all ecstatic about, but still just 18 years old, and I think this is only his second ever game for Real Madrid.
Look, I think you've been a bit hard. I think old Toni Kroos is still Toni Kroos. To me, he's still one of the best midfielders around. And when he came on, I think he's one of the best players on the pitch last night. Camavinga, what a substitute to have, Eduardo Camavinga, especially in the later stages of games with the energy that he brings. Joselu, who's a very effective goal threat, as he showed with his involvement in the fourth goal, even if it wasn't given to him in the end. Brahim Diaz, who is sort of has come in and become arguably one of Real Madrid's most important players in the last few weeks with the goals he's scoring, the contributions he's making. A lot of people here, and partly it's because he's Spanish, and there's always that bias here in favour of Spanish players, are saying that he should be starting every week. So I don't know. I think you've been a little bit. I think you've underrated a little bit there Real Madrid's bench players. And yes, Atleti have a strong squad. Yes, they do. But I think the quality of those players that we've just talked about from Real Madrid bringing on, I think is a step up.
Yeah, I would say I sort of agree with you, Gab. I mean, those players that came on, if they came on for Simeone, would they be as good as they are for Ancelotti? I think that's where the difference lies between the two sides at the moment. One's got a manager that knows exactly what he's trying to do, and they play the same system every week. The other one is caught in between the devil and the deep blue sea. And I'm not convinced by Atleti. There was only about 3 or 4 weeks ago when we went to Barcelona, and Atleti were going to win the league, according to 2 or 3 of the pundits, because they were in decent form. And then we saw a limp performance against Barcelona with João Felix coming to the fore against his old team. And since then, I'm just not convinced by them. I'm not convinced by the coach either.
Yeah, all right. So that's a very good transition there, Alex. Help me understand, because obviously they are the only team to have beaten Real Madrid this season in La Liga. 3-headed goals, as I recall. But equally, why is it not working for El Cholo? Is it as simple as saying, look, you've chosen to be more attacking and people are still understanding this? Is it that there's been a big drop-off in the individual quality at the back? Is that something Ronaldo can fix if he's fit again? I'm a big fan of his. Or is there something else? Because he seems to be tinkering continuously.
Yeah, I'm not sure I understand quite how drastic it's been these last few weeks when you look at the volume of goals conceded. You look at the fact they conceded 3 goals against Getafe, 4 goals against Girona, 5 goals here against Real Madrid. These are sort of unprecedented numbers, really, for Diego Simeone teams. And I'm not sure I can identify one factor. Yes, individual form is part of it. You mentioned Savic and how poor he's been. You look at someone like Jimenez, who wasn't great last night either. Oblak, who has been a very good goalkeeper for Atletico Madrid, but I don't know. Again, I didn't think he was great last night. You heard Antoine Griezmann after the game talking about this and talking about it being a collective issue, not being about just the defenders, being about the way the team defends as a whole. But Simeone himself, Simeone was trying to take the kind of the pressure off the players when he was asked about this in his post-match interview. Simeone said, "Well, it's the coach. It's the coach who is at fault. It's the coach who needs to find the answers." But he hasn't found those answers yet because they keep conceding all these goals. And like I say, it's so un-Atletico.
I want to speak of defending. Obviously, this is my pet issue, but I want to get your, because I can't ask Jules about this anymore because otherwise he gets angry because I keep repeating myself. So just going to throw it out to you guys. Eder Militao out, David Alaba out, potentially suspension prone Antonio Rudiger and Nacho, who turns 34, I think, next month or maybe even next week. He's like, oh no, those will be my 2 center backs. Okay, what if one of them is missing, Carlo? It's like, well, we can play Tchouaméni there, who I don't think has ever played there before this season as an emergency center back. And obviously Tchouaméni, while he's really, really good, if he's playing center back, he can't also be your defensive midfielder, which means then you have to play Camavinga there, which means Camavinga then can't be your left back at the same time, right? So it just seems like you're playing musical chairs. Or he came up with this, I'll play Dani Carvajal at center back, right? Which again, he's a defender, but we had Robbo earlier telling us about how good he was going forward and what he can contribute. And again, Carvajal, wonderful player. If Carvajal's playing center back, though, he can't also play right back, which means what? Lucas Vazquez? Valverde right back? I kind of feel that people should be talking more about this, and what I see is completely nonsensical. And why I think Ancelotti, maybe his nose was getting a little bit longer when he was saying that, and that the club will bring somebody in. But I want to get your view first, Robbo, about this.
Yeah, the problem with bringing somebody else in, you've still got some exceptional players who are injured at the moment and might be in for quite a while. If you bring somebody in, what sort of player are you going to bring in?
Rafael Varane on loan.
So so that's what you're talking about, bringing somebody in on loan.
I need somebody short term. Yeah, I don't need to
short-term.
spend. You don't need you to spend 100 million on a centre back.
I fully understand that you could get somebody in
a body,
a body, somebody, a good player. It can't just be anybody. It's got to be a good player that you get on loan that can fill in when somebody gets suspended or somebody gets injured, and he comes in, and you keep the same shape. So you can keep Carvajal at right back, you can keep Mendy or Camavinga at left back, whoever you want. You don't bring Tchouaméni back into a centre half position. So I fully understand that. A loan is the right thing for Real Madrid to get at the moment. Centre half.
Not Leo Bonucci, though.
Not Bonucci.
He's off the market now. Alex, tell me if I'm wrong. Are people freaking out about this? Or are they just like, look, we're undefeated in 20.
I think the key thing here is that I don't think this is Carlo Ancelotti's decision. Ancelotti
no, it's definitely not his decision. Believe me. I can assure you, I can't get into it too much. Yeah. It's definitely not his decision. But then help me understand the club's view, because there's a lot of money at stake here.
I mean, Ancelotti said before Christmas when Alaba got injured, he said, look, we'll talk to the club to see what we can do. That was him saying, we need to go and do something. And the answer that came back from the club was no. So the club clearly thinks that they can muddle through with Rudiger and Nacho. I mean, you say that Rudiger's suspension prone. I mean, Nacho's had, two red cards this season and 2 suspensions himself. So he again just came back from one. So he's not exactly always reliable either. I agree that the idea that Dani Carvajal can fill in at centre-back is sort of baffling because he hasn't really ever done it. Mendy, okay, maybe. Tchouaméni looks okay when he's there, and yes, maybe you've got alternatives in midfield. But it's I understand the question. I guess the club think that Robbo says you need a player of the requisite quality. I guess the club think that player isn't available, and that Militao. Let's see if Militao is back in March, I guess, would be the earliest you could really look at Militao being back. But if he's back by March, you've got him for the last couple of months of the season.
But he had an ACL, right?
Yeah.
So even when you come back with an ACL, you're not, you don't hit the ground running straight away. Like it's a big ask.
What competition would you expect where they would need another centre half if somebody got injured? La Liga, I think they can probably still win it without too much cover.
There's another team that has the exact same points as they do. Yeah. Now, if we're all just going to take for granted that Girona are going to disappear in a puff of smoke, fine. No. But I think that would be.
But I still think that Real Madrid will be good enough to win a lot of their games.
Sure.
So maybe Girona as well. It's going to be the other competitions, in particular the Champions League. How many players wouldn't be cup-tied for the Champions League?
Well,
to get somebody on loan.
I think there are ways around it. Is what I'm saying. I want to ask you: is this guy Carrillo who? All right, I'll confess, I only saw the highlights of the game against Argentina, the Real Madrid B defender. I know he's played a lot of games for Raúl at Castilla. I have no idea if you can even judge him based on those 90 minutes. Could he be somebody who steps up like Quinta del Buitre did back in the 1980s?
That's setting the bar quite high, isn't it? Yeah. In an emergency, sure. But I mean, he's not there yet. Yeah, he's a player they like. He's a player they've liked in the academy for a while. And like you say, he's got a lot of experience with Castilla, but he's not ready to come in and play for the first team every week. So again, I think that Ancelotti would prefer the likes of an out-of-position Tchouaméni or maybe even an out-of-position Ferland Mendy or Carvajal rather than Carrillo is my feeling.
Ferland Mendy, who also, according to Jules, who's tracked Ferland Mendy since birth, has never played centre-back in his life, even though...
I think I was involved in the argument when you were having it with Jules on the...
Were you? Yeah, I just said, I don't get this. And I take your point about cup-tied players.
Yeah.
Look, I know Varane hasn't been pulling up trees. I think it's very obvious he has an issue with the coach at Manchester United. But goodness me, if you can get him for 6 months, pay a chunk of his wages, you make Ten Hag happy, and you bring somebody in, and even if he doesn't play in the Champions League, like, so what?
Yeah,
he takes pressure off you in the league.
Yeah,
Nacho and Rudiger can take turns resting. He knows the club. He knows Ancelotti. I mean, I don't know. That's just my view. We mentioned Toni Kroos there. it was very evident that he was being booed because of things he'd said about Saudi. Now, a lot of people have said a lot of things about Saudi Arabia and their human rights records. I'm going to go out on a limb, since I know a little bit about how the media works since I've made my living this way for 30 years, is that some of the things he said were picked up by the local media in Saudi Arabia, or whether it was social media or whatever, and they were presented all over the place, and people took this very, very personally. Did anybody address this, Alex, from what you've seen? I mean, is this an issue? Does anybody care in Spain? Like,
Kroos being whistled. First of all, people were like, "Well, hang on, what?" I was watching on TV here in Madrid, and I heard you could hear the TV commentators in real time picking up on the whistles and trying to work out why Kroos was being whistled. And first they were like, "Is it because he's German?" And then the penny dropped, and it is because, I mean, there's two things in particular from Kroos. One was when Gabri Veiga left, highly rated, probably sort of breakout star in La Liga last season, left Celta Vigo last summer, moved to Saudi.
And his career's really taken off since then.
Yeah,
we talk about him every week.
Yeah, great decision. At least for his bank balance. But Kroos commented on, I think it was on Instagram, embarrassing on a post about that move. So you can't really be more forthright than that. There was also an interview that Kroos talked about, stated the obvious, said these players are going to Saudi Arabia for money, and he said it was bad for football. Kroos is very forthright. He talks about stuff in a way that most players don't. He's got his own podcast, which sadly I don't listen to because I don't speak German, but I hear it's very entertaining. But yeah, I was surprised. I was surprised at the way that he was singled out here, and just how obvious it was. Like you say, this may be something about these comments that I guess had been picked up and reflected in Saudi Arabia. But they were last August, so it was a few months ago, and it was obviously still on people's minds. I don't know.